Where? I am Joe Carbonetta, and I am joined by Chevelle Devine and Todd Fluker this evening. And as I try and struggle to get through the switches here as well. How's it going tonight, guys?
Not too shabby. Nothing ever wrong in the world. Everything's beautiful.
That's a very,
it's great.
very rosy outlook. Very.
Yeah, the biggest problem we have is, Joe's trying to handle the jobs of three people in one person.
In what? Well, thank you. I appreciate you saying that, Todd. I truly do. Only because, it's not going to look that pretty tonight. It just is what it is. And speaking of which, that's true too. So Todd,
when I directed it, it looked pretty good.
Wow, Todd, your shot with the graphics is blown way out there. I don't know why. You gotta love Skype for doing that. Todd's in our newsroom, and I guess it works, and sometimes it doesn't. Chevelle is. I was gonna make a joke. We talked about it before the show. I'm not gonna do it to you, Chevelle. I'm not gonna do it. All right.
Go ahead.
No. If I was gonna do it, I would have had to do it from the get-go. Anyway, we are live tonight. If you are watching the show this evening, this evening being Thursday. What is today's date anyway?
4th.
Today's the 4th. That's right. Today is Thursday the 4th. How come we can't hear you, Chevelle?
Because I have my...
Oh, don't do that. Okay, yeah. So if you're watching,
don't do that.
Ordinarily I'd love it, but yeah. Thursday, if you're watching,
having so many problems with his microphone. Earlier, he was like pointing behind him, and he was like, "Hey, what is this thing?" And he was looking at his Skype monitor, and it was his mic sitting right here in front. I was like, "You are so dumb."
Oh boy, is it hot out there? It's hot out here.
Okay. Well, anyway, as I was trying to say, we are live.
My version of a segue.
If you're watching on Thursday, June the 4th, see, you totally messed up the flow again. You totally messed up the flow. You can give us a call. You can give us a call at area code 951-356-6882. That's 951-356-6882. We used to have a telephone number, but that shot too is completely messed up. So here, watch. If we do this, you can't
mess them all up.
That's right. Well, no, it's that they just don't work. So the phone number is just our cartoons. But that's the call-in number, 951-356-6882, if you want to join the conversation tonight. Anyway, so guys, how has your week been so far? I'm just curious.
Just peachy. So that movie I was telling you about, Chevelle, came out in 2013, Lights Out, directed by David F. Sandberg. It's a Swedish supernatural horror film starring Lotta Lasten.
And the point of this is what exactly?
I was just telling Chevelle earlier that he was dumb because of the mic thing, but that reminded me of how that forced perspective, how it, the item, he was looking at the monitor and he was thinking it was back here, but it's actually up here. It was reminding me of like all these tricks with the light and things like that they had in this short movie. And then they expanded upon in the full feature film that came out later based on that short movie. It's pretty good. Check it out.
Yeah.
You guys aren't horror fans? You haven't seen Lights Out? Oh, you gotta check it out.
You have totally thrown Joe off of his game.
Okay, I don't even know where to go with that. I just don't. I can hear people changing the channel right now.
No, you don't. Nobody does that.
Nobody does that?
No, they just click.
Okay,
Come on. If they're watching us, they're in it for the long haul.
Pretty much. They're committed.
Or need to be, as the case might be. They might need to be committed. Anyway, so if you have not been living under a rock, you can't help but notice the civil. Do we want to call this civil unrest, civil protest?
Let's just call it what it is. There's protests and riots. Let's not get into the whole.
What are you looking at? By
euphemisms and all that crap. My other screen. I was just double checking the stream, make sure it's good.
I see. Okay. All right. Yeah. So we've got the civil unrest going everywhere. It kind of ebbs and it flows. Sometimes it's peaceful. Sometimes not so much. Especially earlier on in the week, they had quite a bit of looting going on. Any of you guys seen any of that near where you live?
No, thankfully, no.
Nope. I've seen it on the news and on Facebook, and most of it's coastal states.
All right. Well, yeah, I'm fortunate enough to not be anywhere near any of the major unrest either. But it's interesting because you have the protesters who have a legitimate cause, a legitimate gripe, and are doing taking legitimate action to get their voices heard. And then you have apparently the looters who are simply opportunists who kind of follow behind, and in the melee that ensues, they take full advantage of the situation.
Well, can't that be said for most instances of looting? Is looting an actual official form of protest?
Not at all. Not at all. And part of it is that there's not any real organization. Like the whole Antifa thing is, bottom line is it's anarchy. They want anarchy. They want anarchism. They're going to push for it by any means. So they're out there just trying to push buttons.
Here's the thing.
Go ahead. The thing that really is kind of irritating is that they have all learned from various governments, and they've all planted people inside of each other's organizations. So you have like government, like police forces and whatnot, that are being accused of baiting people with protests. I've seen videos, and I don't know if they're staged or not, but if they are, then I think everybody just needs to be a lot wiser about how they conduct themselves if they're going to go out and protest. But there's this video where people would, drive up and hand somebody a brick or hand somebody a rock or something to throw, and then they take off. So they're providing people with ammunition to escalate the situation. And I saw a video today where you've got the National Guard walking up and down the streets of Hollywood. So a lot of the places where you're seeing most military presence are going to be places where you're going to also have a lot of homeless people who really don't have anything to lose. A lot of them are drug dependent. All of them clearly don't have a whole lot of funds. They don't have a whole lot of stuff. So any opportunity that some of them can get, if you got somebody who's already got mental problems and you give them a brick and a window and nobody else on the streets, it's game on.
Here's the thing I got to say. These looters are a special kind of opportunistic and a special kind of evil, because I'm pretty sure that they figured out early on that they could get away with this, and the police would be, I wouldn't say helpless, but very unlikely to take any real aggressive action for fear that people would turn around and say, see, this is exactly why we're protesting in the first place.
And again, this is something that I've been aware of for pretty much my entire adulthood. There are people who want the in order to push a certain agenda. Choose your agenda. Whether it pretty much, I mean, there's people who just love trouble, and there's going to be people who can benefit from that trouble. So they're always going to pass it off to somebody who's just crazy enough. Like everybody has that one crazy friend where if they need something to go down.
Notice how we're staying on Chevelle.
I felt the eyeballs on me. But if it's going to go down, I might be down for the cause.
Yeah, who's just driving around with a pickup truck with
it wasn't a pickup truck,
a pile
it was
of bricks
sedan,
in the back,
and it was just hella sketchy to me. And then I think there's propaganda on both sides, and I think that there are people who are saying that some of these peaceful protests are a lot more violent than they actually are, and I think there are people who are inciting protesters to be more violent. So I don't know. Long story short, you just got to protect yourself and be mindful of the people you keep company with, because it might sound real good to be able to tell your family, yeah, back in 2020 after COVID, and I went out there and I changed the world, but you can't say that if you're dead. So be smart. And if you really want to do something, it's the same thing I always say. Sure, walking up and down the streets might bring some awareness and whatnot, but you really got to get out there and get to know the people that live next door to you. If you want to change the way somebody's mind, start with the houses on either side of yours.
All right, well,
yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Todd. I'm sorry.
I totally just lost my thought. I was going to say something, but I totally just... flew out of my head.
Really, Todd? I derailed your train of thought that quickly that it took that little to push you off completely, and now you don't know what you were going to say. Seriously.
I mean, I was right there when Chevelle was talking and 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 talking, and I tried
He is
to
verbose.
jump in and say something, but then he
But
just
I was
kept
talking and talking.
and talking and talking and talking. And
I'm
then he
trying to
talked a little
change my
more.
neighbor's mind.
Is that how you're gonna do it?
Yeah,
Just bore 'em
one
to sleep?
screen at a time.
They
Hey,
can't lose.
if it keeps them out of the streets, yeah.
Yeah, they can't lose if they
It's-
sleep.
He just
Listen to my
talks
kid.
them into submission. That's the thing. He just keeps going until they just fine, whatever you say, just
Sounds
shut
like
up.
That Eddie Murphy gif I keep saying where he's like, If people post that when you say, oh yeah, you got to think, Eddie Murphy.
Okay, all right.
Oh,
Well,
Chevelle's got nothing to say all of a sudden.
Oh,
All
yeah,
right.
now
I've
he
got a
wants
few
to be
things.
Mr.
I
Well,
gotta
that's
give other people a chance, though.
that's
Gotta
because
keep talking.
he achieved his goal of derailing your entire train of thought, and now that it's derailed, he's got nothing else to do.
I mean, there's the I think a big issue of this whole thing is the media spin and how much power the media has over all these situations. I mean, you can literally prove any point you want, by, skewing a fact or a figure in a certain way. So the media has, they kind of have a storyline that they're shooting for, pardon the pun.
No, I was going to say no pun intended, but you beat me to it there.
But they make the story what it is they want it to be. Yeah, I keep seeing a bunch of posts on Facebook of, I don't know what to call it, anti-protesters, looters that are not the skin tone that you might assume they are, and just like, oh, you look at all these, look at this crazy white guy, he's out at Target looting some Legos, and you're like, yeah, you're gonna risk your
Looting
life
Legos?
for this.
I'm sorry, what?
So yeah, I mean, you see some people doing some crazy stuff, but yeah, you got to think, with the COVID everywhere, which I don't know, I think Chevelle was saying it. Maybe it's not as bad as everyone was saying, or maybe we'll see after 2 weeks when everybody starts coming down with this thing. We'll see how things go after everybody's been getting together all willy-nilly. We've been sheltering in place.
They're warning now that we are on the edge of a gigantic resurgence of the virus now, because everybody's going out and completely disregarding all of the safeguards. Nobody's wearing masks, nobody's social distancing, everybody's running around in confined spaces.
I hate that term. Can we find another term?
Well,
Social distancing or confined spaces?
That term is BS, dude.
Well, people
I
are
can't.
wearing masks, but not for the reason you would like.
Yeah. Oh, that's another thing. So they're using this opportunity of, putting on these masks to hide their faces while they go and loot everything. I mean, it is the perfect storm.
Yeah, it's working out very well for them. So
You're
hopefully
saying that like they wouldn't be wearing masks any other time they went out looting.
Well,
I
no, but that's what I'm
mean-
saying. Now they have license to do it, and it's not an issue.
I mean, yeah, it's not like you gotta put it on right before you go into the bank and stick them up. You already had it on, and
they're actually expecting you to come in wearing it. That's the crazy part. They'd be more mad if you're not wearing the mask.
yeah, they're like, take your ass outside and put on a mask.
Then come loot your Legos.
Then come loot your Legos. There you go.
They come in here and get your TV on.
Oh, so anyway, I've been watching the news reports, and I'm watching these people, and again, there are a lot of legitimate.
Whoa. What do you mean these people?
Oh God, don't even go there. Don't even go there. So
I mean, it's bound to happen.
What do you mean it's bound to happen?
Man, we're gonna have to change his lower third from Chevelle to Angry Man. Anyway,
What do you mean, angry man?
see, there you go. So I've been watching this, and there are people with legitimate concerns and grievances. Most of I will go out on a limb and say the vast majority of the people that are out there marching every day are really hoping to bring about social change in a positive manner, and I commend them for that. And then, of course, you have the crazy people who would just jump on anything that they could. And then, obviously, we have the malicious element that sticks around after the curfews. But I'm curious, what do you guys, and I already know this, I already know the answer for that Angry Man is going to give us, but what do you think about the establishment of these curfews, Angry Man?
I get to go first? You don't want to save me?
Yeah. No, I want you to go first.
My thoughts about curfews are the same as my thoughts about gun control. Anybody who is determined to break the law is going to break the law. And the other problem that I have with these curfews is it gives license for more police authority. So you're not really helping the people who don't want to go out and misbehave. You're just putting your knee on their throats and telling them to stay down and shut up.
That's an interesting way of describing it, but I got to tell you something, and this is my honest opinion, and I know it's going to raise, the cackles on Angry Man here, but I don't fear the police being empowered nearly as much as I fear our president, who wants to throw the military at everything now because he thinks that we should just be cracking skulls. That's a little more concerning to me.
And that's probably a valid reason to be concerned, but having said that, if you have already instituted what is by proxy martial law, you essentially have given him an additional measure to be able to do exactly that. So if you don't want him to take that, then you shouldn't be for a curfew. At the end of the day, whoever is the person in charge, and in this nation, Trump is at the top of that food chain, that person has the ultimate say over how much authority gets exerted. And if I personally don't think it would be that case if it was just him. I don't think I would trust Biden with that authority.
I don't think Biden would be trying to take that authority, to be honest.
No, I wouldn't trust Biden with that authority.
Yeah, but I don't think he'd be trying to take that authority. By the way, if you want to join our conversation this evening, you can get in on the conversation. Whoops, that is the totally wrong graphic here. Geez. There we go.
Just push random buttons.
Yeah, only push some random buttons. You can call us at 951-356-6882. That's 951-356-6882. This social, I'm sorry, Chevelle, I know you don't like this.
I gotta tell you, you suck at doing three people.
Yeah, this social distancing thing is really murder. There's no way you can keep track of all of these things simultaneously, man. This is brutal. Anyway, all right, go ahead, CJ. I'm sorry.
When you have someone like Trump in here using this power that he is given all willy-nilly, I mean, what was the deal with him clearing out all the protesters out in front of the White House so he could walk across the street to the church for the photo op?
That was absolutely the worst thing I've ever seen. Seriously, it was just a photo op. And they even asked him, was that your Bible? No, he said, it's a Bible.
Photo op or not, let's be practical here. It is a fact that given time and opportunity, some nut job out there is going to take a shot at the president. So if he's going to go out there in the midst of protest, of course he's got to clear the streets. Yeah, they do that stuff no matter where he goes. Anytime he shows up in any town, there's a motorcade half a mile long with decoy cars all over the place just to protect him. So if he's going to walk across the street, I'm surprised they didn't shut down the entire district.
Common sense would dictate that in this kind of a situation, you don't try to go and do a photo op in the middle of a protest. You don't deliberately go out of your way to step on people's First Amendment rights so you can take a picture holding a Bible.
That whole conversation is false. Any politician is going to take every opportunity for a photo op, period. I don't care what party, I don't care how much you love or hate them, they're going to take advantage of that opportunity. Just like, I don't even want to go down the road. It's just, you can't get mad because he's taking a photo op. And that's, when you talk about...
It's not that I'm mad that he took the photo op. I'm mad about when he decided to take the photo op. That's the part that bothers me so much.
It by saying he has all this power and he uses it to clear the streets.
He did.
I'm not arguing that. What I am going to say, though, is now is not the time for people to be like, oh, my God, Trump has too much power. The time for that was about 15, 20 years ago when they signed that Patriot Act. That's when you gave him that power. And that was on the heels of a Bush and coming into an Obama. And then they expanded those powers under Obama. And this is the same thing I said 20 years ago. Sure, you're happy that you're able to give these powers to this guy now because he's your guy. But what happens when he's not your guy?
Oh, my God.
There's a reason why we have checks and balances.
I don't see how the Patriot Act has anything to do with him clearing a crowd just so he can go and do
It-
a picture in front of a church
what
where they
it does
didn't
do-
even want
What it
him.
does do is give him the authority to do those types of things without having anybody else check him. That's what it does.
What do you want to say there, Todd? I heard you rolling your eyes.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, I mean, it's like Chavot was saying. Yeah, it's great when it's your guy, but it's not so good when it's the other guy. But seriously, who's I already know the answer, but whose guy is Trump? Who is still supporting this maniac?
I can't figure that out for the life of me, except
Listen,
for the puppet up there in the house.
Guys, you have,
Mitch McConnell is the
you
biggest
have-
puppet
you have
that has
got
ever
to
been
let go
in
of
government.
You've got to let go of that. If you want to know why Trump is in office, it's not necessarily because people love him. There are those that love him, and the ones that love him will love him no matter what. But the reason he is there is because of all of the people who hated Hillary. And I said this before, and I'll say it again. If the Democrats would have just listened to the Democratic Party, their constituents, and not tried to shovel Hillary down everybody's throat, you would have a different president right now. And
Look
that's
at
a
this
fact.
guy.
That is a definite hardcore fact. If you'd
We
have
will
given the people
make
somebody they were confident in,
America
they
great
would be the
again.
president right now. That's it. And they're doing the same thing now. We're here in June, and they're seriously still trying to push Biden? Seriously?
Seriously,
You
because
started out
anything
this
would
thing
be
with
better than
14
Trump.
Different candidates. He is not better than Trump. That's foolishness.
Oh.
If you want to win, you need to run somebody who actually is going to win. And the last thing he said when he was on air with the Breakfast Club, if you still don't know who to vote for, you ain't black. That's the reason he's going to lose, and that's the reason. Trump's
All right,
gonna be
I won't
president
argue with you
again.
that was a dumb thing to say. I won't argue that.
Okay, but hold on, Joe. It's not just a dumb thing to say. It is a statement on how the Democrats feel about their voting constituents. They don't respect them. And when you don't respect me, I won't speak for every other black person. I won't speak for I can't say Democrat because I'm not a Democrat. And I can't say Republican because I'm not a Republican. But if you're going to talk to somebody that way, if you're going to tell them that you aren't really what you say you are because you won't do what I say you're going to do, I'm sorry, you lost me.
All right.
And they lost when they voted and put Hillary in there against Trump.
Come
She
on,
was
Todd.
so deeply flawed.
What have you got to
So
say to this,
deeply
Todd? Come on, give me something.
I was just looking up Romney Malco. That's the guy I'm thinking of. Yeah, man. Not to get kind of off topic, but back to a different topic. Just
That's
I was
kind of
just
going
thinking-
off topic, Todd. I don't know. You're talking about going to a different topic. That's off topic.
I was thinking about
Well, the
the
topic we were on was off topic.
40-year-old virgin and how good Romney Malco was in it.
What?
Oh man, he was good.
What has
No,
that
he
got to do with Biden and that psychopath Trump? What has that got to do with
No.
any of that?
I was thinking of him, and I saw him on Instagram just yesterday or the day before, and he had a video on. It was like 10 minutes talking about systematic racism in America, and yeah, just how black people have been held down in various ways over the years, and from prison sentences being much heavier on these people for the prison industrial complex, which is has so many lobbyists that they're spending millions of dollars on Capitol Hill so they can make billions on cheap labor force. And it was a very interesting video, but it had a lot to do with what we're seeing now is a lot of people are upset with the basic racial inequities that we have in our society, and I just can't recommend it enough. It was very interesting, very eye-opening to, even me being a being a black person as I am.
We'll call you blackish.
I personally have never run into any of these issues that most people do when their skin tone is much darker. It's much more obvious to the casual viewer.
So wait, you're saying that you can pass yourself off as white and therefore you don't have any problems? Is that your assertion?
I mean, that's being half and half apparently has its half of white privilege at least. I got at least a bit of half white privilege.
Half of
So-
white privilege. Okay. All right.
And the other half is all swag.
So yeah, I mean, and I know I was talking, these are the conversations everybody's having nowadays, like what is white privilege and what is, are black people being held down systematically? Is it a part of our everyday life? And to the casual viewer, you probably don't think so. Having just like, you're like, me out here, I'm saying, how many people are actually affected by this COVID? I haven't met anybody who's affected by it, so it's probably not that big a deal. But yeah, you go online, you look at a few articles, you see the people who are dying left and right. You have to change the way you think, and you see these firsthand accounts, and you see these videos of people out there being, oppressed. That guy who is in Central Park, freaking bird watching, and the white lady's threatening him to call the cops and say, hey, this black man is threatening me. And
all while strangling her dog.
But that's very interesting.
That whole
Todd.
video was wrong on multiple levels.
Yeah,
because
but
a lot of the outrage was, how dare her treat that poor dog that way.
But Todd just exposed some of Chevelle's hypocrisies, because Chevelle is the first one to say that COVID's not that bad because he's never had it.
I've never said COVID's not that bad. I said that the way that they're trying to attack it is all wrong. It's a highly contagious,
or
for
is
those that are. It is highly contagious.
And
just like any other form of the coronavirus. They're all very contagious viruses.
And
SARS was a flavor.
Maybe that's the good thing, and the bad thing. Yeah, you can say that the people are overreacting to
Stella.
it and making, maybe they did overreact in the lockdown and the curfews and all that stuff. But
did they? Have you looked at the numbers of people that are dead from this? I mean, seriously, did they really overreact?
Okay, we can talk about the numbers. What is it, like 200,000? 100,000? What was it?
I don't remember the specific number, but it's up there quite a bit.
Here gets back
maybe
to
we
my
can look that
problem
up.
with how they approach this, and it's my problem with politicians in general. Whenever you ask the government to solve a problem, this is kind of bullcrap they do. When this started, they said 2 million people will die. It didn't happen. And it didn't happen not because of what we did. It didn't happen because mathematically that just didn't make sense.
Well, is that
the death
Americans
rate,
or
no?
overall?
They were saying in America, 2 million people were going to die. And that did not happen. And that did not happen
Maybe
because
it's because
the
of
mortality
social
rate
distancing.
For this disease is not that high. It's not social distancing. If you just take into account the population, every single human being in America would have to catch it in order for that many people to die from it. And that just doesn't happen. If that were the case, why doesn't every single person in America have the flu at the same time? It doesn't happen. And I only say that not to say that it's not serious, because for those who have pre-existing conditions, elderly, or whatever the other situation is, there's that up to 3% of people who it will kill or will make them wish they were dead. One of the two.
Just to
but
throw
for
a few
the
numbers
other 90-some-odd%.
Shut up,
Yes,
Chevelle.
yes, please do. Please throw a few numbers and that'd be
throw
great.
a few numbers at you with a quick Google search. It appears that there have been 2,042 deaths over LA County. There have been 110,000 deaths in the United States, and worldwide there have been 383,000 deaths.
383,000 deaths?
Yes.
Worldwide.
Worldwide.
And we're talking about a population of 8 billion. So the mortality rate is not that high. And I'm going to tell you why it's not that high. Because
social distancing.
Most people wash their hands. And if you want to call it social distancing, fine. But most people, when they get sick, don't go out and do stuff. So when they do get sick, the people around them that know that they're sick will take care of themselves. The people that are sick will not be out running the streets, especially if Corona's taking you down the way that I've heard. I know people who have had it, and it's not pleasant. But it's not the problem they made it out to be. And the way that they attacked this, they essentially created a situation where you've got National Guard on Hollywood Boulevard in front of El Capitan Theater.
The National Guard, the National Guard is not out here because of COVID. They're out here because people started smashing windows and taking all the shoes they could get their hands on.
If you did not play a part in that, then you are grossly mistaken.
Oh,
You shut down the nation's economy. You have, what is it? Oh, a quarter of the world, the nation is unemployed right now, and they are not being allowed to leave their homes. They're not being allowed to gather. And then on top of that, you throw some cop who wants to put his knee on a dude's neck for 8 minutes until he's dead.
You know what?
And then lift his limp body onto a.
Again,
Yeah, people are going to get a little upset.
Again,
Joe,
the situation with the
whatever you wanna
police
say,
officer,
COVID
that
is a
explains all the
contributing factor.
protests. It does not explain the looting at all.
The looting can be explained by people taking advantage of a terrible situation.
Yeah, they're
I'm not
taking
blaming the
advantage. That's
protest for the
exactly what they're
looting,
doing.
But they're taking advantage of this situation, and the situation was exacerbated by COVID. People who would be otherwise occupied are now out on the streets because they don't have a job and they're not being allowed to go anywhere. You cannot pick and choose with these situations. You either take the whole thing or leave it all. You can't say, oh, this is the cause, that's the cause. It all works
I've
together.
been stuck at home for I don't know how many months we've been sitting here now, and I don't have any desire to go out and smash windows and steal shoes.
Joe, whenever in your life have you wanted to do anything any other rational human being has ever wanted to do?
Smashing windows and
you do
stealing
not
shoes and
play-
stereos is not
Remember,
rational
what was it? It
behavior.
was either Sesame Street or Electric Company. One of these kids is not like the others. That kid is always you, Joe.
I mean, he does. I assume he has base desires, as all men do.
He is not
You know
like
what?
the others.
I'd love to have a yacht and $1 million mansion and stuff too, but I'm not willing to bust out windows and steal shoes, stereos, and everything else I can get my hands on, so I can get there. It's just not.
Busting windows and stealing shoes, man. Come on.
Oh
dude.
wait, I think we actually have a telephone call coming in here. Let's see if we can take this call. Good evening, and thank you for calling Around Midnight Somewhere with Joe, Chevelle, and Todd. How are you doing tonight, and who are we talking to?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
Angry.
I'm doing okay. No, I'm not as angry as Angry Man. But anyway, Angry Man, say hello, Angry Man.
Hello, angry man.
There we go.
It's
Caller,
because it's so hot in here. This is ridiculous.
what's your name? Who are we talking to this evening?
Susie.
Susie. Well, Susie, it's
Uh-huh.
a pleasure to make your acquaintance this evening. Which one of us would you like to say is wrong?
I was going to say I agree with Chevelle.
I kind of figured that was coming.
I agree with Chevelle in that I think that causing people to be stuck in their homes kind of built up all this pent-up demand for like social interaction, and then demand for like economic goods. People want to do something, and they're kind of already angry, no offense. And I think this just gave them a cause to unify behind.
Okay,
Yeah,
all
Already
right.
on edge.
You got to certainly give it to her that people don't have much to do. Like Chevelle was saying, there's so many unemployed people. Yeah, they're looking for something to do.
And civil rights has been pretty high on the priority list for quite some time. And they're sitting at home, they have a job or they don't have a job, they're unemployment, they're losing their business. I mean, they're angry. They're kind of chomping at the bit to get out to do things, to kind of go back to normal. Not that they can go back to normal, but yeah, I think it's kind of just a perfect storm.
All right. So, do you see any kind of a solution on the horizon? Do you see a point where this daily protesting and the nightly rioting and looting begin to finally die down? Or are we stuck with this cycle until they come up with a way to vaccinate us against the COVID virus and tell everybody to go out and do something?
So there's been a lot of parallels being drawn between 2020 and 1968. Specifically, you're looking at Vietnam protests, you're looking at what's going on with the stock market. So there's a lot of parallels already being drawn to that. And this kind of like activism of, or we could say young persons, because that's really kind of who's doing it. But
I call them damn hippies.
that could work too. But I definitely see the parallels, and I know you guys were talking earlier saying, Trump's use of the National Guard is unwarranted. I 100% disagree. I've seen what the demonstrators, the looters, the rioters have done to deface our national monuments, the World War II Memorial, the Vietnam Memorial, for instance. I mean, I've had family members die in every single war since this country was founded, and to see something like that happen just because you're upset about something that you don't really understand, that makes someone who would have been on your side no longer on your side.
I'm sorry, is this Lieutenant
just
Dan's
lost me.
sister?
Lieutenant Dan's
Huh?
sister? Is that what you just said?
You Lieutenant Dan's sister?
Yes, absolutely.
Susie? Susie?
So to say,
Susie Dan?
Oh, brother.
so to say that my uncles died in Vietnam and Korea for no reason, for you to traipse on your freedoms like this, I have a big problem with. I 100% agree with what happened. That was inappropriate. The cops shouldn't have done that. They should all be arrested, 100%. Is this necessary to get those things done?
I think there are those who would argue that it is necessary at this point because, unfortunately, Floyd was not the first, and the way things are clearly proceeding, he would not be the last. I mean, there's a laundry list of names within the last 12 months alone of people of color that have been either outright killed or seriously maimed by the police in the name of justice. So to some degree, maybe it was necessary for a shock and awe campaign in order to get people's attention. But I do think the looters have carried this to a level that is just beyond.
I think maybe the question isn't whether or not it's necessary. The question is, if I were, for instance, to go to France and there's some statue of some person I know nothing about, have no relationship to, would I have a problem with tearing that thing down? Or if I see something that, whatever my nationality or heritage is, and I see a statue and that thing actually represents the oppression that myself or people that I know have had to endure, do I have the same affection for that as everybody else? Because what I can tell you is that, and I'll speak specifically about Black Americans, we have been here for a long time. We did not want to be here initially. We were brought here by force. Then we were set free and still systematically oppressed by all types of different means. We don't need to go down the laundry list. And if you really want to know how you can fix the problem, I strongly recommend you go and find out exactly what those things are, because the information is available if you want to find it. But when you don't feel an attachment, for instance, if I were to go out there and say, I don't like Trump and I see a statue of Trump, do I care about pulling down that statue of Trump? Do I care about any of the works he's done? No. If I were whomever, like there's a big deal with Columbus. If you're dealing with pretty much anybody in the New World, Columbus was essentially a pirate. Are they going to have a problem with tearing down that statue? No. So for people who do not feel like whatever that statue is represents the freedoms that they are being denied, it's not a problem. That doesn't make it right. But it's not fair to say you should not have done that. That's a sacred thing. It's not sacred for them. It means nothing to them because they have not been able to enjoy any of the benefits that come from what that represents.
Now,
and
I want to say that I do recognize the need to restore some kind of order, and to that extent, bringing in the National Guard to assist the police, again, that's one thing. But when the president of the United States decides he wants to have a photo opportunity, so he sets off flashbang grenades and rubber bullets, to people who are exercising their First Amendment right in a lawful fashion, just so he can go across the street and hold up a Bible that wasn't even his, by the way, in a church that he wasn't welcome to be at.
Lawful fashion. Burning down a church is not.
They
lawful.
were not burning down the church. Now,
I'm not saying they did, but when you're gathering around a place and that's the type of thing that is happening around your gathering, you're going to run into problems. And this is why I keep saying,
okay, but whatever happened to innocent until
to
proven
events,
guilty?
If you don't want the police to take you out, you have got to police yourselves, and you cannot let your others get out of control because you are being infiltrated.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate for a second here. I'm gonna play devil's advocate. What happened to being innocent until proven guilty? Do you not see that this is the exact same thing? Well, but this is the exact same thing. The police officers said, there's a black man. He must be up to no good. Let's pin him down, with a knee in his neck, even though he's already in handcuffs. He didn't do anything, but he's black, so he's going to do something. That was the police mentality there.
When you're already at the bottom, you got nowhere else to go.
But again,
That's
the protesters...
and then all these people who are like You might be a couple of inches from the bottom. You might be a couple of miles from the bottom, but you're not on the bottom.
But
So
those
you don't know
protesters
what
were
you're going
hanging
through.
around and happened to be in front of the church, but they weren't burning down a church. And for everybody to say,
I
"Oh well,
never
they're there.
said
They're going to
were
burn down that
burning
church. Let's
down
stop
the
it down.
church.
Let's stop
What
it now."
I'm saying is, if you're going to be in that environment, you have to be prepared to deal with whatever it is. And to be fair, I'm the one on the show who has said nothing will change until blood is shed. I've been saying it's going to take anarchy to cause any change for a long time. I'm not happy about it, but I'm also not stupid, and I saw it coming. This is not something new. We can't be blind to this.
Oh, wait, we still have a caller on the line there. Are you still with us?
Uh-huh.
Okay, and was that your comment?
What I was going to say, the purpose of me talking about the national monuments, whether or not they have any value to anyone else, you have just lost me to your movement, because your movement's goals are not being achieved when all of this arbitrary violence is taking place. So if we want to go back to Dr. King and the way that he ran his movement, he would not allow this to happen. He policed his protesters. He literally trained people to go out and protest. If you can't handle it, leave. So I agree with you, Chevelle. Police your own. Absolutely, because their message is being lost in all this unnecessary violence. I shouldn't be uncomfortable walking my dog down the street because of the color of my skin. And the color of my skin is absolutely not my fault. And that, just like everyone else's color of their skin, is absolutely not of their doing. So you can't blame me and yet not blame other people. It has to be the same.
On that, we can agree.
All right. Well, we thank you very much for your call this evening. We hope you are at least finding the show to be engaging, and that you'll continue watching this evening.
Oh, it's something. Joe, you got to stop
Absolutely.
triggering me, man. I need a safe zone.
All right. Well,
Always.
thank you again. You have a wonderful night.
You too.
Bye-bye.
One thing I was just thinking about is the Black Wall Street massacre. Have I talked about that before? I forget.
I don't believe that you have, Todd. Please
I don't
enlighten
think
us.
you did.
I was. It is just insane to me that this piece of American history was, kept in the dark for so long. I literally, this is just me. I'm stupid, and I was, brought up in the Pasadena Public School District, and I had no idea this was a thing until literally the TV show The Watchmen on HBO just recently, and WPUSD, where they literally had a reenactment basically of the Tulsa Race Massacre. And I was like, whoa, this is dark. Holy cow. And I was talking to some people about it, and they were like, oh, yeah, it's messed up that really happened. And I was like, that really happened?
See, and this is part of what I'm talking about when I say the information is there, but you got to go look for it.
Yeah, and
the thing about that is, for the people that were massacred, they did not have any legal recourse. They died or they left. And if you go around Pasadena, Altadena, or LA in general, go find out how many people have relatives from Oklahoma, and that'll be part of the reason why.
Well, you know
That's
what?
the reason why you have so many people who have family from the South.
You
in
know what?
Pasadena.
Part of
That's
the
reason my
problem.
family came.
Part of the problem with society is that they'd rather use Google to figure out what Kim Kardashian did today than learn about these things that you're talking about, Todd.
I mean, yeah, I
That's
had
not
to
an accident,
go
though.
learn some more about this. And it is crazy just learning about how this, it took until, what does it say here? 1996 was finally when the state legislature authorized the formation of the Oklahoman Commission to study the Tulsa race riot of 1921. And just this year, 2020, it is starting to be taught in public schools.
Yeah, well, the
just so
joke's
that-
on everybody because now there's no public school to go to. Everything's online, and they're just doing the basics now.
Well,
nobody's gonna
just so you
learn
know,
about it anyway.
and this is actually something you guys should probably take to heart. This is part of the reason why Black people hate it when someone says, why don't they just take advantage of the opportunities America has to offer? Because the reason for that race riot was because Blacks were too successful, and the whites wanted the stuff they had, and they came in and they took it. They couldn't go to law enforcement because law enforcement was part of the group that was committing that crime. So it's difficult for Black people to hear somebody say, well, I have the same rights you do. All you got to do is just stop acting so oppressed. It's not that easy. We know that. We know that inherently and internally. And most people don't want to hear it. It's a hard thing to hear. They don't want to believe that kind of thing happened then. And I would go so far as to say it happens now. It happens in different ways. It gets done through the banking system. If you go look at redlining, if you look at housing projects, why are they building housing projects in specific areas? How is it that gentrification happens and all that stuff? None of this stuff is incidental or coincidental. All of this stuff is deliberate. The PUSD and the reason your education sucks so much is because the Supreme Court forced them to integrate the district and white families left. That's why you have La Cañada, Sierra Madre, Arcadia, and all those other school districts, because they did not want their children going to school with black kids. So that's probably something you didn't learn from PUSD either. They didn't tell you about that court case, did they?
I said, what?
Okay. Wow.
And this just and again, I'm not saying any of the behavior is okay. I'm not saying it's okay for people to run out, loot, and whatnot. But what I will say is, when people have been denied, not just for their lifetime, but for their lifetime, their parents' lifetime, their grandparents' lifetime, all the weight of all of that gets stacked on every generation that follows. That's where you get the distrust of police, because maybe your great grandparents were killed by a police person because they didn't smile the right way or they didn't look the right way. That gets handed down through generations, and you can take that all the way back to when they put them on boats. So you really have to be more sensitive to that. That's where the notion of white privilege actually has its roots. The fact that you don't have to think about those things is because it's not a part of what you're taught and not a part of your experience. But it's something that every black person in America has had to deal with since birth. And they have to be taught not to feel that way. My parents raised me to not feel that way. And it wasn't until I got to be in my 20s and was stopped by cops for walking home one day, and wasn't until I was trying to make a trip up the coast and had somebody call me outside of my name, or the 2 or 3 times that I'm driving through South Pasadena and you got some random kid who feels it's funny to yell the N-word out the window and take a left turn real quick before you can let them know where they need to go. Those kind of things, that's where it becomes personal. That was where it became personal for me. But it's stuff that I always knew. There's 2 statues sitting outside the front of City Hall, Jackie Robinson and Mac Robinson. Mac never left the city. Jackie never came back. And the whole time Mac was here, he was fighting to try to make it a better place. And he was oftentimes just kind of saying, okay, Mac, you won some Olympic medals. Okay, we'll let you talk. It's so much deeper and so much thicker. Looting and rioting is not going to help. The only thing that's going to help is when both parties, and I'll speak for myself, we've been saying this crap for a long time. People didn't believe it until the videos started showing up. Well, now people are starting to do research and they're learning about the race rights and all this other stuff. All of this stuff is real, and you need to be prepared to have some very uncomfortable conversations. And you cannot blame a person who has a boot on their throat for complaining about the boot.
Yeah, well,
it's on their throat.
I'm not trying to belittle anybody's situation here at all, but I do want to say that the whole idea of this kind of profiling and we'll call it oppression as well, is not unique to the black experience. You know, I have Latino heritage in my background as well, and I grew up in around the Highland Park area in El Sereno back in the 80s, and I could go out every Friday night and I could almost set my watch by when I would get pulled over by LAPD for looking suspicious, because I happen to have an old Cadillac. So here's this Mexican-looking kid in an old Cadillac, and I must be up to no good. And there's no joke. I think I've told the story before. I didn't have so much as a parking ticket on my record. There wasn't even so much as a violation for running in the hall at school. But I'd get pulled over every Friday night, and I'd get yanked out of my car, and they would search my pockets and run my ID and everything else, and they'd walk around my car and make sure I had my license and my registration and my proof of insurance. They would look for a reason to write me a ticket. And one day, I actually just gotten another old used car. It didn't have a front license plate attached to it. I had the front license plate, but it wasn't there, and they actually took a walk around my car, and it was the only thing they could find, and they wrote me a ticket for that. So, I mean, it's not the same. I have never had the misfortune of being beaten down by the police. And again, I'm not trying to belittle what everybody else has been through, but this kind of behavior isn't unique to one particular ethnic type. It is. There's no question that there are those who have much worse experiences than others. But it's a problem that needs to be addressed across our entire nation. And it affects everybody because there is not equality. Todd, you made a joke about the white privilege, but it's real.
Yeah, I can say that was literally the only time that I've been pulled over and pulled out of my car and physically searched happens to be the time I was riding in the car with Chevelle.
Oh, really? That's
It was a real
interesting.
coincidence. I had never had that such a thing happen to me.
Yeah, and I remember telling you to stop fidgeting before you got us all shot.
Yeah, I didn't understand what you were talking about.
Yeah. Man.
Interesting. That's I don't think I've ever heard this story.
You were there. What are you talking?
Yeah, you
Okay,
remember when
that
half
story.
of the SWAT force came down?
Yes,
Yeah.
I do recall that. I do recall
Yeah,
that.
let's say,
But
maybe you don't remember because you were half in the bag.
Right, yeah, but in all fairness, in that particular situation, we really were in the wrong. We had the misfortune of being in the wrong place at the very wrong time. We were totally there by accident, and you almost can't help but forgive the police for wanting to kind of make the assumption that we might somehow be connected.
Don't say that right now, Joe. It's a bad time to say that.
Like I said, this isn't the time or the place to recount that entire story, but we really were in the wrong place at the wrong time, and it was just by fate that happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was physically violated.
Shut up,
I don't
Todd.
want to know about your violations. I do recall being put in the back of a squad car for quite some time while they tried to sort out that we were not involved in
And
whatever
oddly
was
enough,
happening.
That's the time I did not end up in the back of the squad car. Think of that one. Like, what the heck are these guys doing with this black guys? We need to check these guys out.
Oh boy.
That was kind of a weird situation.
Isn't that the old Chappelle joke? You're like, if you got a bunch of black guys and there's one white guy, watch
Yeah,
out for that guy.
Well,
'Cause he's the worst one.
really? I've never heard that joke either.
Oh,
but-
that's the joke. You're like, if that guy has earned the respect of all those black guys, you gotta watch out for him.
That's interesting. That's kind of funny,
Chappelle. He can't get away with those jokes anymore, I assume.
No, I don't think anybody can get away with those jokes anymore. I would guess, but
Yeah,
And
bad
it's
time.
funny. It's funny that they can't get away with those jokes anymore because the only reason they can't get away with it is because now people know they're not jokes.
oh jeez.
That's a damn shame.
Wow. Okay.
But
all
am
right.
I wrong?
No,
It needs
no.
to be like not a rim shot, but a sad version of a rim shot.
What would a sad version of a rim shot sound like? I mean, the only thing we've got for that is this one.
Yeah, that trombone is pretty good.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. Well, so you know what? We only got about 5 minutes left in the show, and I wanted to lighten it up just a little bit, if at all
Why
possible.
does it gotta be light?
Oh, man, Angry Man strikes again. So,
That's the only way you can get through the streets.
okay.
Not all of us can lighten up, Joe.
Look at MJ.
I just
Pulled it off. Good.
But did he though?
Yeah,
Did
I'd
he?
say he did.
No.
Yeah.
You end your life. Oh, anyway, let me stop.
Okay, so as I was trying to say here, I recently had occasion to go look for a replacement smoke alarm for my home. Okay, and I have one. I've had several for years, and one of them just apparently has decided it's seen its better day. But I wanted to find the identical model, which is still being manufactured. Why, you ask? Because everything is already mounted, and all I'd have to do is twist off the first one,
Because Joe.
put up another one, and be done with it.
One of these kids is not like the other.
Yeah, it seemed like it should be so simple. So then I go to try and purchase this smoke alarm off of a well-known site online that sells everything from toasters to cheese and everything in between.
Oh,
and
yeah.
can
Isn't it the Nile?
yeah, exactly.
Oh, no, wait. Euphrates.
Yeah, something like that. It's in that area, right? Anyway, so I see this thing. They've got it. I clicked it, put it in my cart. I go to pay for it because it says that it can be shipped anywhere. I go to pay for it, and then it says, "We're sorry, we can't ship that to your address. You can either delete this from your basket or you can change your address." Well, I tried a couple of different addresses that were close by me, including one of their lockers, and they just can't ship this thing to me. And I can't understand this, right? So I look into this more and more, and what I discovered is that somewhere in California's infinite wisdom, they've apparently decided that I'm not qualified to change the battery in my smoke alarm anymore. So the only smoke alarms that can be shipped to this state are ones that have a 10-year battery in them already that is sealed. You can't remove it. And when the battery finally dies, you got to chuck the whole smoke alarm and start all over again.
Wow.
This is a state that cannot figure out how to stop its police officers from beating people half to death, but they're going to tell me that I can't change the battery in my smoke alarm. Is there
You're
something wrong with this,
totally
or is it just
incapable.
me?
Yeah, you're totally incapable of taking a AA out.
Well,
And
they're actually
put it
9
in
volts.
fresh
Okay,
9
you
volts.
failed because they're 9-volt
see,
batteries.
Now you have
You
your
failed.
reason, Joe.
Yeah, I just
There's your
thanks,
explanation.
thanks,
No,
thanks, Todd.
I definitely have a combination smoke and CO2 alarm that takes AAs. Don't make me
Yeah,
go
they
get
do
it.
have that. They do have that.
All right, all right. Well,
It's
anyway,
a combo one.
yeah. Well, so there you go. Now you can't buy a smoke alarm anymore that doesn't have a permanently sealed battery in it if you live in the wonderful, glorious state of California.
Yeah,
And I'm annoyed. I'm really annoyed by this.
Not
Yeah,
knowing enough
like
to
I
move
said-
out of state though.
Yeah, like I said in the last episode, don't talk to me about building codes and all that crap.
Oh,
Build with that junk.
that's right. You've been playing that game for a while now.
Oh,
Dang,
God.
how many years is it now?
Yeah, it's like a game of Monopoly. It never ends. It's interminable.
Oh God, that is a long game. So yeah, I've been around and around in circles, and I don't understand it because I purchased this device before here in this state, but now I can't. And there wasn't even it's not like they said, hey everybody, we're thinking about doing this, and you want to chime in? No, they just arbitrarily did it. They didn't tell anybody, and now you go and try and find a smoke alarm, and you're good luck with that.
This is one of those things where it was a bill for free flags for veterans, and then they tacked it on the end.
Yeah, probably something like that. I don't know.
It was part of that stimulus bill that just went through.
So you shipped it to Chevelle, right? And had him just
I
mail it to you?
seriously, I'm not gonna lie. I seriously considered it, but then I thought about how Chevelle's probably too cheap to ship it over this way. I'd have to reimburse him for it, and
You definitely have to reimburse me with
with interest.
a little bit of interest. There's going to be a shipping fee, a handling
Just pay
fee,
separate
not a
processing
shipping
and handling.
fee, a shipping fee and a handling
Yeah,
fee.
Very
just
separate.
pay separate processing and handling, and we'll get it to you. Oh, so
When was the last time you had to deal with a self-addressed stamped envelope?
Vehicle registration.
do they still have those things anywhere?
Actually, no, they make you buy a stamp.
Well, no, isn't that self-addressed stamped envelope? Yeah, I didn't know you could still get stamps anywhere though.
Yeah, I'm glad I got those forever stamps that I probably bought a book of forever stamps, I don't know, 10 years ago, and it's lasted me this long for the one time in, every year I have to mail one piece of correspondence of some kind or another.
It's true. I have virtually no need to actually send anything anymore. I'm doing my part to keep the Postal Service in business, however. All of my creditors, all of them, they're trying to get me to switch to paperless billing, and I refuse to do it because I don't want to put the post office out of business.
Oh my God, I did that a long time ago.
The paperless billing thing? Yeah, see, you're responsible for taking the post office out. All right. That's been another
No, I
episode
think they kind of did that to themselves.
of Around Midnight Somewhere with Joe, Chevelle, and Todd. Be with us next time for the next train wreck in progress. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. We'll see you next week.